and am honored to have been a chair of this gathering long before in the early days, and now a member of a really strong and vibrant committee of chairs. I'm looking forward to carrying that forward. I think we here become a little too fascinated sometimes with technology and standards, and we forget about the human side, right? About the real people who are fighting on the front, and in that fight they are learning and innovating, and in the case of Ukraine, winning. It's, I think, incumbent on us to listen carefully and learn from them and from their innovations, to capture the challenges that they haven't figured out yet, and spend our energies on helping them to do even better. Ukraine is, I'll go ahead and advance. No, I'm not advancing. I'm not advancing. Ukraine is a I think, golden case study example that training works. The Ukrainian armed forces of 2014, when Russia came in and took Crimea and bits and pieces in the east, is fundamentally the same on a lot of vectors to the Ukrainian armed forces today. That is grinding Russia to a halt and beginning to push back successfully. It's the same officer corps, it's the same opponent, it's the same terrain, same equipment, at least initially. The delta is training. Training works, Ukraine proves it. Ukraine has shown in spades that they train well, they absorb it, and innovate as they go. They are not just training like they fight, they're training while they fight. And we'll hear about that from Maxime in a bit. When I think about ADL and partnership, I think very much in the context of everything that we can give to them to fight better, harder, faster, and at the same time, and this is the incredible thing that Maxime Tishenko, Colonel Tishenko here represents, is that Ukraine at the same time views this as a two-way street. This is a full colonel at war, right? And he's here with us to share. That's a lot, right? He's going back to Kyiv tomorrow, and he'll land back in Kyiv. It's a 3-day journey to get from there to here, and to get from here back there again. He's going to land back in Kyiv on the 23rd. That's Russian Independence Day, and you know that there's going to be a heavy bombardment on that day, right? So think too about what he's going back to, and the gift that he's giving by being here, and what it means in terms of Ukraine's commitment to partnership from their side. They get it, and I think we need to live up to and honor their commitment to the partnership as well. So, happily, our NDS gets it as well. This is across all 3 of the main vectors: building enduring advantages, that's the easy one. Integrated deterrence and campaigning, allies and partners are all over our NDS. It used to be that partnership was a 3rd pillar. Instead now, partnership is everywhere, in everything. We know that lifelong learning is the way that a modern military grows. We know at the same time that we're all limited by resources, right? I know that every conversation that folks have had this week in this hall and around has been about how much you want to do, but how little you have to do it, right? That's at us at the industry and organizational level, but then think about the individual level. Everybody needs to be at their station all the time. We don't have time. Think about Ukraine. They don't have time to take soldiers out of Ukraine into the UK, into Poland for training far away for extended periods. They need to have that training where they are, when they are. And that speed of relevance is accelerating, right? Think of that changing, that evolving battlefield. There have been at least 3 phases, 3 major shifts in the war, the Russian war in Ukraine, in just the last 7 months, right? That speed of relevance is a fast accelerating target. ADL is an incredible tool. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but for bridging that resource gap, right? And yet we have a lot of challenges on the human front. The technology, a lot of it's there. The standards, a lot of it is there. But a lot of the organizational and human challenges persist. I think it's something that we really need to chew on. But we know it works. Ukraine proves it. Multinational cooperation is a incredible vehicle for helping to address a lot of those human and institutional challenges, nation by nation, but even backdoor for us, right? When you can collaborate multinationally and see Ukraine doing stuff, training while they fight that we can't do, that's inspiring, right? I mean, to the extent that we can empower and learn from Ukraine through multinational cooperation, we're helping ourselves as well. Okay, so this is an eye chart, but I think it's relevant to note that this partnership, the collaboration doesn't happen without a vision, that we really are here to develop, demonstrate, and disseminate standards for training to optimize learning quality and efficiency, cost, time. Okay, so that's a lot of buzzwords and a lot that's packed into a small space. The point is you can actually track and measure this, right? So this is not just political science words in the air. I am a political scientist. I'm not a learning scientist. But this is effort that can be tracked and measured. And it's got a great infrastructure to back it up organizationally, internationally. The DADLAC, which some of you all here were participating in earlier on this week, feeds into and supports the ADL Global Partnership, which is mainly focused, it's US ADL led and mainly focuses on science and technology, so the innovation, science and technology side. You got the PFPC ADL working group, which is largely supported by DSCA, so OSD policy, right? There, what you've got is all the partner nations with their knees in the mud. They're the ones that are out in the field testing that amazing new technology that's built up and shared through the global partnership. That field testing yields results. Best practices that are then codified through the NATO training group for IT and ED, which is a standards body. It owns the standards for training and education in NATO, especially ADL in NATO. To us in the United States, you say, yeah, so what? NATO standards. I don't really even know what that means, or why should I care? For our partners, they really care. Right? Sweden, that just have to leave to get back home, but they're now in the midst of a procurement for a new LMS, and those NATO standards are a direct reference in their call, right? So those standards really matter when it comes to our partners. They actually read and buy into them, and we should too. But it's a loop. It's a mutually supporting, overlapping set of collaboration. From innovation, field testing, to standards development, leading to new gap identification and new innovation through R&D. And there's a bunch of flags, but just to demonstrate another way of showing the same map, right? There are a number of overlapping organizations and overlapping members of these different organizations. There are a lot of actors engaged. Ukraine, that nice blue and golden flag right there, is smack in the middle. Ukraine has been incredibly active across all of the key organizations that we see in multinational cooperation on ADL. And so it should be no surprise that they're really good at ADL, right? They have for about 15 years, at least that I've been observing, been voracious consumers of the innovation, the field testing, and best practices and standards that are developed through our multinational collaboration on ADL. And it works, right? They learn, they build, they grow, and they kick Russian butt. And I like that. All right, so I'm taking away all the shiny stuff, right? Because I think it's useful for us to pause, and Maxime is really going to tell the real story. But I think it's good for us to pause and think outside the frame a little bit about what are some of those early lessons that we're learning from the conflict, from Russia's war in Ukraine. And that is, first of all, we think about training from a pre-deployment perspective, mostly, right? Pre-training, or education even. Now, training is a capability for operations. Ukraine trains while they fight, right? And as we face complex, hybrid, multi-domain campaigning, remember that word, NDS, right? It demands interoperable, resilient, sustainable, survivable, agile, and responsive training capabilities. That is not how we think about training capabilities for the most part, right? Resilient. Ukraine on day 3 faced a ground assault on their ADL server farm, right? Who thought about that? We need to think about that, right? The Russians identified it as a target. Do we know it's a target? What are we doing about it? Speed of relevance is accelerated, and that demands data-driven insight for decision-making and management, right? And that means across the board, right? So that integration of acquisition, development, and delivery of training solutions to keep up with that accelerated pace of requirements, we're not good at that. We're really slow, right? And as we think in a more macro sense, we're getting a little bit better now at delivering weapon systems to Ukraine, to our partners in need. We're still really crummy at delivering the training systems to match. Right? And that's in part because our system is so gummed up. And it's a lot of ad hoc. US gear is often too hard to use, right? That's actually a training problem, right? And it's a story as well about, I think, how training needs to be integrated from the very beginning of system design, right? You need to have that user-centric approach so that the training load is shifted from technical operation to tactics and operational integration, right? That's where we need our Ukrainian colleagues to focus their training, not how do I point and click, right? We need to know how they're going to integrate these new systems into their current crisis to help fix their problems. It's not a universal problem, right? There are other systems that are easier to use than ours. And we may think of our systems as superior, but if we can't train them, they're not going to be used. And so we may see and be confused by what we view as inferior systems killing more tanks, but it's because more soldiers can really use them, right? That matters. Ukraine doesn't have 12 weeks to train people up. And that, I think, is not going to be an unusual situation in the future. And we're stronger together. And that's where I began, and that's where I want to end. And to introduce to Maxime that way, we're all in this together, you know? We don't, there's so much for us to lose. and uh, my friend is going back, uh, um, and there's a fundamental failure on our part to appreciate how much we can and how we can give. There are systematic challenges that we must address, because Ukraine is, and we say, oh my God, that's going to take forever, right? Ukraine's in this for the long haul. I'm in this for the long haul, and I hope that we all are as well. And Maxime, please come up. Let's start with a round of applause for
Thank you so much for the warm words about the Ukraine, and I would like to start my presentation also. Can you hear me? Yeah? Well, to start my presentation from the also words of appreciation to the whole, to the United States of America, for the whole citizens, what are you doing in the way of supporting the Ukraine in such difficult time in the war. So it's any support, it's extremely important currently for all of our citizens and for whole Ukraine. And any support is going to be to our common victory in this war. Thank you very much. My presentation will be focused on the observations of using the ADL technologies during the war based on our case. And the presentation will be based on will be divided on the two parts. The first part is focused on the military perspective from my experience, and another part I will present on behalf of my friend from the Kharkiv, one of the university in the Kharkiv, who was under attack from the first days, and currently still they have tens of their missiles and artillery attacks every day, during the day and during the night. So you can see on the slides that actually our center, so we had different iterations of the branches in the university, National Defense University of Ukraine, who was responsible for the ADL. Like Aaron told, we were searching and researching those fields for the long time, but the current center, ADL Center, was established in 2017, and we were extremely supported by our partners from the different directions, from the hardware support, the training, and participation in the different working groups, and all of that brings us really great input to the readiness of our officers, especially in the National Defense University of Ukraine, because we are training the operational and strategical level, the main focus of our officers. And after the graduation, when they see what we implement based on the experience of our international partners, so they could see that, they can observe it, and then after the graduation, spread within the whole armed forces. And you will see some examples later on how one of the way how they are using this experience. So it's extremely important to receive and share the whole experience between us, and you can see the results. So we are conducting launched the conference, so we became a partners of the different working groups, so it's extremely important. And the main things is the readiness of the military personnel. How the educational process changed. From the technical level, so the last grades, like 5th and 4th grades, they graduated ahead of time, but mostly they continue receive the training in the face-to-face mode, but using the ADL as an additional material, like e-library platform, so like a regular solution, but mostly face-to-face. For the operational and strategical level at the university, so the officers were posted to their units, and they are continuing receiving the education and training, mostly in extramural form of study, and using, of course, also ADL technologies. But mostly they perform their tasks in the units on the commanding positions. And reserve officers, they are continuing training, but in online, so using the fully online technologies, and they are continuing training in that way. Next, several slides will be focused on the five aspects. In my opinion, there are more aspects which are important, but those 5 aspects are extremely important, which we have to think about that, how to solve those, how to avoid the problems regarding those aspects in your and our countries when we developed or established the ADL system within the armed forces or even in the civilian sector. So the first aspect, the staff. As we know that to support the ADL system, we need the personnel and the staff. But based on our experience, so our center, for instance, so we all, since the first day, were involved in the combat missions on defending the Ukraine and the Kyiv, so different activities. So, and there is no ADL staff. So, and how to perform, and we see that the result is reduction of the ADL system administration. But we need new users are coming, and we need continue provide technical support and new users. So I mean, it can be thousands of the users, like mobilized person and so on. And we need to provide them support. We need to provide the support for the system. So this is actually a problem, and to solve that, of course, the best way to make not all processes, but most of the processes to make optimized, to avoid in the situation of the war or conflict or something like that, to make ADL system operational and to provide the training and to be able to provide the training for the users, for the customers. The next one, infrastructure. So as you can see currently from the news, so like mostly on the eastern side, but it's around whole Ukraine. There are attacks, missiles attacks, artillery attacks, and most of the institutions, they put their infrastructure within their institutions. They put a lot of money for the service, for the storages, and so on. But within the 1 second, it can be destroyed everything. So, and different situation can happen, fully destroyed, or can be internet problems, etc., etc. So, but to put in the local infrastructure, it's okay, but in the peaceful life, when it will be war or conflict, any kind of extreme situation, so those institutions can have a problem. So we had it in Kharkiv, especially in the different regions with the civilian institutions. So their infrastructure was damaged or destroyed. And one of the solutions is to implement cloud. It's military and or civilians. For military, it's more complicated, but it depends on your systems and how it's organized. But this is the best way because, again, to keep the ADL system operational. So this is from the line. The next aspect, the personal data, is extremely important because sometimes that the systems to register in the system or during the using the system, it can be collected a lot of personal data, like where you're served or something like that. And can you imagine the situation when it will be hacked or in some way, yeah, and all this information will be collected by the enemy. Currently in the temporary occupied territory, so the Russians, they are searching in different ways who was the former military or even like involved in the different kind of services, forces. So, and the results you can see on the screen. So the worst result, those person can be killed. Another result is relatives and persecution of the users. So we have to be careful what we put to the systems, to the ADL platforms, etc. So different kind of system. If it's not well protected, it's better, of course, to avoid to put personal information, or in a different way it can be implemented, or don't use the personal data. So, but the personal data is extremely important, and you will see also on the civilian perspective that they also care about the personal data protection. The next aspect, the access to the material. So we discovered that what is the most popular sources of using for the training of the military personnel. There are not so many, but there are a lot of possible ways of receiving the training. But currently, and especially in the beginning of the war, we discovered that quite useful to receive the materials from the YouTube, because it can be shot video clips with the really necessary information, and YouTube, it's too complicated to hack or damage or something like that. So it's really a strong source of the information, and I also will show you the example how it's going currently now. Also, but what is the tricky point with the YouTube? Our forces can receive the training if it's open, yeah, training, and also enemy can receive the training from the same sources. So we also have to think how to do that. But sometimes it's necessary to provide training now, even the enemy can receive it. But the soldiers and who is going to join the armed forces, mobilized forces, it's great to have how to provide the first aid. Of course, they will be trained, but to familiarize themselves, like once more, and different kind of training also can be very useful to use the short video microlearning. Also, the different kind of channels. We receive a lot of, we have actually following a lot of news in the Telegram, but you have to choose which kind of channels are using. But for the training, it's also good because you can separate the users and provide the same videos there, and communicate, answer the questions through those channels as well. It's good. Of course, the regular LMS is mostly popular in Ukraine. It's a Moodle, but in different countries, different LMSs. But it's still valid, and for the supporting the educational process is great. And e-library, we have e-library of the, let's say, for the armed forces linked to the our LMS, and it's also for the operational and strategical level. So on new publications we put there from the different institutions, and it's great to receive on the request different kind of books and manuals and etc. So it's also very useful for our officers and soldiers, NCO, etc. And you can see that it's just 5 different, let's say 4 different kind of sources, but it can be more and more. And it's really extremely important not to separate our sources, what we have between the different entities, like on the slide, it's a different worlds. Because all the information in the different entities there can be extremely important for the users from the other entities of the or the world, and to keep it separately, and to during the war, it's extremely important to know where to find the information, where to find the training information. So it's great to have some kind of unique source where you can find the access. It depends on the regulations, but where you can find all links to the different sources or the different training. So really, we're also working on that. We have our website of the centers, and I'm trying to put there useful links, but not to separate, but join together and sharing what we have. It can save time, save resources, and save life as a final result. So here, the format of the materials. I already told that the videos, yeah, the short videos, video clips, micro-learning is very efficient. And the format of the videos, you can see that like 3D, it can be recorded and put to the YouTube, yeah, with some kind of manuals, how to provide, and it's great visualized. So for the soldiers, for the any kind of military, it's quite convenient and very, from my perspective, it's very convenient to just watch a couple of minutes how to provide the first aid and once more and train, instead of waiting the trainers in the field and to show them. So really different kind of visualization in the easiest way and the in the short way, it's quite important. And this is the example actually of the territorial defense forces. They didn't have before, and actually this is the new forces in Ukraine. They were just recently established, but after the war started, they created the YouTube channels, and they have sources, so they put hundreds of videos there, translated, they recorded by themselves, so on the different perspectives. So, and it's really useful because tens of thousands of persons are joining the territorial defense from the civilian life, and receiving such kind of training is great. And like 360, yeah, you see the example, and the different kind of materials on the websites. It's also very important. And they, for the short time, create the website, just regular website, but there, one of the, so they have also library there. And for instance, here, you need to receive the training on the NLO. Okay, go to the website, see the videos, how to use manual and characteristic, that's all. So such kind of sources extremely important. And again, this is the one territorial defense. Another has another LMS, another course catalog, or some, etc. channels. So it's good to join it together and to have the links to the different training sources is great. And some statistics regarding the using of the their YouTube actually. So you can see that up to 2,000 persons daily goes there and using their training materials on the YouTube. And there is some statistics, but it's changing with the time. But currently it's what is the most popular, like a shooting training, then the second tactical medicine, tactical training, and then physical and CBR training as well. So, and they are collecting more videos there. So, and thousands of the persons have daily watching from the field, because we have somewhere, it depends on the situation, but smartphones and internet, so you can use it. And also interesting statistics on the how long the training material should be. You can see the source, what did they use, so mobile phones mostly, yeah? And they spent up to 2 minutes on the videos. So the short videos, like 3, 4, 2 minutes, just with the necessary information, it works. Like 40 minutes lectures, it's too much, yeah? So this is the statistics. Shortly from the military perspective, now I will switch to the experience of the Kharkiv National University of Radio Electronics, and from the behalf of my friend Dr. Viktor Kauk. So I will share their experience, how they changed, and what was the challenges from the exactly for this university, but for other university as well. And but they were well prepared for the ADL actually, and it helps to continue educational process even during the war. But the challenges you will see. So at the beginning, before the war, you can see that not ready for the war, but ready for the distance education. So what they had, so they have the during the, of course, the COVID matters, yeah, from the 2019. So they had ADL system, but they shifted mostly to the ADL distance learning educational process, and they use Moodle. They conducted very efficiently 2 years educational process in the Moodle. Actually, this is the picture of the downtown of the Kharkiv. And by the beginning of the semester, they have a lot of courses there, and they use the Moodle suite for education as for the corporate domain, and so everything was really well organized, and they were ready for the distance learning. They separate their training process on the two phases. The first phase is 24 February, beginning of the war, and 2nd April, let's say. During that period, there was provided the leave or holidays for the whole student. Then most of the people were focused not only on the studying, because a lot of attacks, you can see the results there. It's just a residential building. It's a school, I think, yeah. And most of the people evacuated from the Kharkiv. And from the staff of that university and the students from that university, just less than around 5% are stayed physically in the Kharkiv. So at the beginning, on this phase, they shifted to within the Ukraine or abroad. Also, they managed to shift, not only they, a lot of universities, institutions, and school even, with the support of the IT company, they shifted to the Amazon cloud, and it helped to, because infrastructure, I told before, they shifted, and they will be able during the second stage to continue their educational process online. The second phase, 3rd April, and up to now it's still going on. All processes, all activities in the university continued in remote way. So nobody comes to the university physically. So everything they should manage to conduct in remotely. Classes were conducted synchronously, asynchronously. So all of us understand what I'm speaking about. Yes. So and. Provided the assignments, and if it's possible for the teachers, online classes. If it's not possible, just record the classes and put there. So this is the regular ADL, but they managed to do that because shifted to the cloud. If it was necessary for the students, so they requested the academic vacation for the 1 year. It depends on the situation, because every family, they had different situation, what happened and where they shifted. And also, it's currently also going, the internal and the external mobility, up to 10% of the students, they use that for continuous studying as well, within the Ukraine and also in the universities outside of the Ukraine. Next two slides will be about the biggest changes. So it's clear from the side, but what was the changes in the educational process? Lack of resources. So it's logically because the war, and most of the sources shifted to the war, but not for the supporting the educational process. And most of the people, again, I think I'm repeating, but from the beginning, but most of the people, they are focusing on survival, to provide the shelter and to shift the families outside, and also for the teachers, for the students. So they are shifting around the country outside, and also a lot of students and the teachers who is in the age. So they joined territorial defense or armed forces. It depends, to defend the country. It's also matter like what changed in the educational process. Again, next two elements, all paperwork should be replaced by the digital solution and decentralized management. So as a regular university, you have everything like a offices, you sign the documents, financial aspects, everything is going like manually or maybe optimized, but there are persons inside and you have these systems, yeah? But if it's not possible and the management can shift it within the country, and some of the management can be outside even, yeah, but the main management is inside the country, of course, but the teachers and the staff of the administrative staff, financial staff, So that's decentralized. It needs to be a solution to organize this process without people, so using some systems. And it was also challenge for them to do that, to continue make the university to be operational, yeah, because again, financial, then all documents of the students and so on, a lot of processes. So it's also changes and they manage them to do that. Reduction of requirements for the students because of the reduced quality of the education. Of course, it's not the same for that time, yeah. Currently, so they are managing, but it's also the changes was happening. Another one, the psychological support. It's also extremely important because the people, they are a stress situation. So we have to think about how to do in some stressful situation, how to provide this support for the teachers, for the students. You can see there is the picture from the subway, and several months people just stay like that and go outside just for buying the food or cooking, something like that. But most of the time, a lot of people staying in the shelters. And how to behave in such situation, psychological support, yeah. Again, you see security of personal data. It's also extremely important was for them. Very interesting next point, non-formal learning outcomes. So different platforms like Coursera, Udemy, edX, they provided access for free for their sources, for their courses, and they are making like how to implement their results in the non-formal education from the courses there, according to their speciality, how to implement the results from this education in the formal education. So this is also some of the way how it can work, because lack of the teachers and so on and so on. So it can be replaced in somehow, and they are doing it the same. And integration with the international educational space. This is also the changes. It's very important for the international grants and also external mobility to receive, have some programs in the different institutions outside according to their speciality, and also results from them put to the common program within that university. So it's also implemented there. And it's important. It's matter because sometimes there is no other options. And then challenges. And before challenges, I would like to emphasize that 10 universities from the Ukraine, according to the last year grades, let's say, and annual rating of the best universities in the world, 10 universities from Ukraine are in that list. So we have a lot of power and opportunities to provide a good education, but the challenge is currently the cost reduction, let's say. Currently it's around 10% less, but there is another financial formulas are implementing in the educational system currently, but cost of reduction, of course, and it will be less universities as well, because they are shifting to the another regions, etc. Reduction of the students, students numbers. Two categories of the reduction. It can be how many students will come back to the same university, and another, how many students will join the university in the new educational year. And according to the forecast, up to 30% of the students of that university probably will not come back who studied in that university, and approximately a reduction up to 50% of the newcomers for the university because of the different reasons. Another point currently is going on, the admission campaign, and in the Kharkiv you can see that currently again artillery and missiles, so where to provide the places for the admission campaign. So sometimes it's online, sometimes it's all there figure out, but this is the problem as well. So, and we should think about that. Shelters for all students and teachers using the face-to-face mode. So, for instance, in that university, at the same time, if it's a regular educational process, it's around like 3,000–4,000 persons staying in the building, yeah? And to be on the correct way, it should be provided the shelters somewhere, yeah? In this building, somewhere in the shelters there, for that number of the persons, and they should be provided water and food and so on and so on. So this is the challenge actually, how to do that. So mostly, I think it will be like a hybrid mode, or mostly in that region will continue online mode. But those shelters, not only eastern part, it should be for the different regions, even on the western, because missile can launch to the like unpredictable way, and they can hit different institutions, school, children garden, or buildings, or different kind of infrastructure in any time and anywhere. So, and this is the our citizens, especially the children, so, and the teachers, it should be provided in somehow. So this is also the challenge, and we should think about that, what to do in such situation. Online learning from the temporary occupied territory. So some students and the teachers, they would like to continue education in that university or other university, but they stay because of different situation on the temporary occupied territory. And the Russians, they changed the networks, they changed the telephone networks, internet networks, and they blocked different services like a Google or something, whatever they want. And they have corporate domain, yes, it's a Google, and it's blocked, so it's not possible to receive. So it's a very complicated task for them to continue even if they want to do. But they cannot leave this territory because they don't allow to move from the territory to Ukraine. They just allowed to go to the other side, yeah, and there is no choice. So this is the also challenge. Obtaining diplomas, it's also, yeah, for the graduates, and receiving different kind of documents, complicated from the temporary occupied territories, how to move them, how to send them, how to receive the original one. Teachers, yeah, some teachers can lose the work, and they've been teachers for the long time, and probably they should change their profession, and this support should be definitely provided by the government. What to do, how to do, where to go. If this situation happened, then they lost their work. And other humanitarian aspects, it's different aspects, starting from the dormitory for the students, because recently, last day before and yesterday, there was attack and missiles to the dormitory in the city. So, and for the newcomers, they have to stay somewhere, yeah. And this is again problems for the civilian institutions. For the military, it's a problem, but we can manage shift, hide in somewhere. It's not so many, but for the civilians, it's really extremely important where to put the persons there. And based on the example of this university, for instance, the persons, civilian persons, just not connected to the university from the destroyed districts in the Kharkiv, they shifted to the different institutions dormitory, and where to put the new students. So this is the challenge as well. Finally, finalizing my presentation, I think I'm even in time. There is no reason to convince anybody now that ADL, it matters now. So ADL technologies, even before the war, during the COVID, it must to be, in my opinion, because something can happen and educational process will stop. in my opinion, it should be developed on the ministry, on the government level, not on the. It's better to do that, like establish some infrastructure on the government level and just provide it for the institutions, like users. Okay, you need platform, you need solution. They take it, but don't care about cybersecurity, don't care about saving the personal data, don't care about the technical support. So this is the best way how it can be work, but it depends on the regulations. And without ADL during the war, it's possible, but this is like one important part of the training, of the providing the training materials for the soldiers, for the militaries, and without that, it will be complicated to fulfill the level, yeah, because receiving the training outside and then come back, repeat and repetition, it's very metal. So ADL, and without ADL, it's a must in my opinion, and we should just thinking how to develop different kind of enterprise solution, but on the systematical level. Yeah, so this is my conclusion. So I am responsible for the ADL, and really without ADL, I think it's not possible to conduct efficiently any educational process and in the future and the current situation. So thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, please, you are welcome. I would like to finish with our words like Slava Ukraini. Thank you. Thank you.